I've asked Mr. Walker if he would lead us in our invocation, and then Mr. Heritage is going to help us with pledges. So if you guys will come on up and get ready for that. I told them it was audience participation day, so.
Shall we all bow? Almighty Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for bringing us together to do productive, positive work for the city of Odessa. We ask that you would come and be in the midst. We ask that you would lead and guide and protect any and all of us that are here today. Watch over us, keep us safe, our families, our loved ones, our friends, and even our enemies. We ask that you would bless the city of Odessa. We ask that you would continue to guide us and lead us in the right direction. We ask that we would make and choose and do the right decisions. We ask that you would continue to be in the midst of whatever is done, whatever is decided, and whatever we take part in. We ask this in your Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Let's honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, guys. Always want to stumble over that, too.
I lapsed into the Texas one.
Yeah.
Here and then.
This is a public meeting. Anybody that wishes to address the board on any item that's on the agenda may do so before or after the consideration of the item, or before or during the consideration of the item. Just let Norma, our city secretary, know, and then you can make your way to the podium if you want to speak on it. First item on the agenda is to consider and act upon minutes of the January 12th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I actually had a couple of, or maybe just, two little corrections. I think that down here, it's on page 3 towards the bottom, where it says, Ms. Holman stated Ms. Foreman has her page to publish information. I think maybe uses her page would be, and then in the following paragraph, I think what we mean where you say he formerly owned an advertising agency, it's probably formerly. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I think you are. Any other corrections or comments on the minutes? Okay, entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Motion approved.
Mr. Robinson makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Kirk seconds. All those, did I get that right, or?
It's okay.
Okay. They've got these nice long mics, and everybody's got to use them. But all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motions for the January 12th, 2023 meeting are approved as amended. We'll go into the contractor reports. Tom, are you going to be doing that? Okay. Economic Development Department, Mr. Mansky. He's here in spite of his injury.
Good afternoon. Good to be here. I was supposed to actually have surgery today, but they postponed it, so here I am. After the minutes, you'll see the Economic Development Activity Report. All the specific projects, there haven't really been any changes in those. We're starting to get some callbacks on our phone calls and things, so hopefully next month I'll have more to report to you. We did have a $180 million investment project hit us last week. There's really not enough to discuss on it, but it's something we're moving forward with to see where that goes. After the projects, before I get into some of the rest of the report, there were a couple of items I wanted to mention. I believe that at least one member of the board did not receive our financial report. And I wanted to let you know, even though it's not in print here, as part of our contract with the ODC, we provide a detailed financial report every month to about 35 email addresses. The board, city council, people like that. And so if you're not receiving it, please check your junk mail. And also, if you continue to not receive it, let us know, because we don't know unless you tell us, and then we'll have to figure out if we went back, I know Valerie with our office checked the email addresses. I think it was yours, Mr. Robinson. I think we have the correct address, so you may want to check your junk.
There was nothing sent to any of the 19 people. There was no attachment on the email.
There wasn't an attachment? Did anybody else not get one?
I got it.
You got it?
Okay,
I
it
got
must
it.
have been a different one,
Okay.
because it said attachment, but it didn't have it, so.
Yeah, I'll have her go back and look at that again, but I think she checked originally and felt that, everybody got it, and she checked, she had the correct email address that we've been using for you,
Yeah,
so I don't know
that's
what's
correct.
up with that.
Yeah.
We're too attached to technology sometimes. And in the other item, we have sent as part of our agreement, if we don't spend it, we give it back. And so we have already presented the city with a check of money that we did not utilize as part of what we budgeted last year. And I will tell you a couple of things on that. One is we normally budget high because you never know when you're going to get a project that we're going to have to spend more money on than we anticipated. Almost every single year, we return the money with an audit of what's being returned, why it's being returned, and what was spent, what wasn't spent. This year was unusually high as far as what we sent back to the city, so I didn't want you to think we weren't doing our job. It's a little in excess of $300,000. Over, at least $120,000 of that was actually for an item to utilize a marketing and lobbying firm from the program we did a while back, Permian Fuels the Nation. And I think it was, excuse me, I think it was the board's decision over a year ago not to utilize that anymore until further notice, so we didn't. So that money sat in the bank, or sat in our checking account, excuse me, and we didn't spend the money, and it has now, as part of that check we've returned to the city, it has been returned back to the city. So I just wanted to let y'all know in case anybody says, well, what are they doing with that extra money? We don't keep extra money. We give it back to you. So, so that's on that. And then going back, I'll just let you know further after the, it's a little hard to turn the pages here. After the projects, you got business retention expansion, and they list out the visits that were made in December. Or actually, this may be January now since we're into February. But you also see Odessa Partnership. We unfortunately had to cancel that meeting due to the weather. Matter of fact, I think that was the day I had my accident due to the weather. But you'll see the other activities, services, and other activities that were provided, and then the partner visits that we had. And then you'll see the economic indicators after that. And then I always remind you on our marketing, you'll see, and I probably need to go back in a future report and show where we were maybe a year ago with our accounts and followers and things of that nature as compared to where we are today. Because we actually got a phone call about a week and a half ago. A gentleman had apparently started following us, and he's got a small company in town, and he wants to talk about support for his company in an expansion. And this came off of our, I believe it was off Instagram. So that'd be nice if we get something out of that. And then is there anything else I was going to mention? I think further down you're going to mention the workshop coming up, so I won't get into that. But I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time from anyone. I don't think I forgot anything, but somebody will tell me later if I did. Okay. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Roski. Current media partners, Christie?
Couple quick things. I know that our contract is on the agenda a little bit later in the meeting. I do have a very brief presentation just on some planning things that we've gone over, some things that we've talked about with the advertising committee. Also due to weather, we've either talked or emailed independently, also talked with Tom, but do you want to go through that
Please.
now? Okay. Okay, I'm going to go through just very, very briefly, just some things that we found over the last month, mainly just research while we're kind of waiting on the next steps. These are just things that we see happening starting as soon as the contract is approved, but wanted to kind of let the whole board know. Like I said, the advertising committee has seen this, the economic development department has seen this. We've talked about some of these things independently, but wanted to show the board what we're thinking. Really quickly, I'm going to go through these quickly, and I'm glad to forward this to anyone who would like the full presentation. But we did an audit of all of the print ads of competitors that are out there right now in a lot of the magazines, the websites, the things like that, and looked at some things that are happening, things we liked, things we want to avoid, things like that. So some of these first ones are some things that we liked. We liked in all of these that they have a map where they show where their location is. I think that a lot of us, being from here, think that the rest of the country knows where Odessa, Texas is, and we want to make sure that when they see us in a national publication that they know exactly where we're at. Several of the ads had an industry focus, which we'll talk about the industries we're going to focus on here shortly. Several are using QR codes that will go directly to a page where we can use print ads now to track a little more deeply and get some metrics. Several are doing announcements. Lubbock just had a factory that was announced, and so when they have good news, they're sharing it in the publications, in digital, and in those types of ads. 90% of the ads out there, you're going to see a skyline, too much copy, they all look alike. So I pulled a few of them. Amarillo does a great job. We're going to use these in some of the other samples here in just a bit, but we don't want to look like what everyone around us is looking like. Open for business is something that we've talked about. We all want people to know that. There are others using that tagline, so we want to find a way to say it better. Look through some of our other areas and what they're doing. Again, not a lot of them are doing it very well. We don't want to duplicate. We want to be different, but we want to take advantage and see what they're doing as well. So that being said, the tagline that we're working from right now is only Odessa. We'll show you a couple of applications of how this could be used, but what we want to do here is talk about how Odessa is the only choice. When someone is looking outside to come here, we want them to only consider Odessa and know that Odessa is the only choice that they have when looking to move their business. We'll also use this in social and other applications locally. A couple of applications for the ad. This is one. This is more of the standard ad that you see focusing on businesses. This one in particular, this graphic where we're actually utilizing the same O that's in the tagline to really kind of target and pinpoint where we're at in the state. Most people recognize the state of Texas in the nation. They may just not know exactly where we are. So that is kind of the point to this. Very simple copy, kind of ending this with, there's really just one place that has it all, only Odessa. This is a billboard application. All of these need call to actions, websites, things like this. This is really super preliminary, just to kind of give you guys an idea of where we're going. Social graphics, we have several ideas. We're working with the Economic Development Department right now on developing some new social programs. They've been doing a great job. We're just looking to amplify that and provide them with some tools to keep that moving. We've done a full social media audit. I'm not going to go through the entire audit, but here are the cities that we did go through. Frisco and Austin are on the list. Frisco, is getting absolutely everything from the Dallas Cowboys. They've got Frito-Lay. They've got, a lot of the big ones, but they do it very, very well. So some of the examples that we looked at, we're using them as just one to pay attention to. And again, I'm not going to bore you with these. These are things that we're working on internally, just things that we should be posting on our economic development channels, and some of the things that we liked. Target industries. We looked very, very closely at the general development plan, and we've talked internally about where we want to focus. We have a full industry research report where we're continuing to do research. The one that we moved kind of to the bottom of the list is more warehousing. We're finding that warehouses are full, you know, almost coast to coast. Workforce is difficult to find in these big ones where you're trying to staff them. So we're not looking to pursue the things like that we may not have the workforce to support. We're looking to do the things that will work well, and we're going to continue to research those as we dive deeper. The first thing we want to look at doing, once we get going, is revamping the website. We have identified an economic development company who does this. They have a lot of tools that are already built on the website, where a custom developer would have to develop these tools. So cost-wise, it's going to be about the same. They all fit within the budget that we originally proposed, but they've already got access to these modules. And after conversations with Tom, he has experience with this group, and it had worked really well in a previous community, which was good. We've got great references on these folks, and again, assuming everything is approved, then this will be our first task. Budget, it's not small by design. This is basically what is in with the contract. The only thing that moved around, we rolled up SEO into the website design because that was already included in this. And again, I can send this to the group, but the budget is basically what's in the contract today with that one exception on there as well.
This is basically a 9-month budget,
This
correct?
is a 9-month budget. Yes,
To
this is.
get us back onto our fiscal year.
Correct. So we kind of prorated what the original RFP was and went backwards from that, finishing up a couple small projects that were carryovers and then starting fresh with a new design and some new tactics. So again, a lot of research this month until we are approved to go. But personally, I actually have a surgery coming up. I wanted to make sure I was prepared and ready to kick it off and get going should that contract be approved and signed next week. So.
Can you go back a slide or two, go back to Target Industries?
Yes.
And talk about that a little bit and how.
Sure.
How you guys kind of
Sure,
developed that.
you bet. So we looked at the general development plan, and then in the meeting that we had before the last meeting with the advertising committee and the economic development group, we looked at that list as a whole. I know that there were some that the economic development group felt very confident in that we need to have on this list. There were some that the advertising committee felt like they needed to be on here as well. They're kind of in order on this list. Mining and quarry, we are looking into more. That's the one we had the least amount of information on. The things we're finding are really good, but it's one that we haven't really pursued in the past, and so we're trying to get more and more info on that. Manufacturing just makes sense. There's so many things that we can do with our workforce that we can pair up in manufacturing. Our emphasis right now, from what we found, will first be in medical and chemical manufacturing. Most of the things that we're seeing, movement in Texas, we're looking at those closer. We have some research to do before we finally land on that, before we do any really specific site selector marketing or industry marketing to those, but those are definitely coming to the top of the list along with logistics and locations. There are some others that we looked at in manufacturing that we're finding other states offer more incentives than Texas does, so we're already starting kind of at a disadvantage. So those were interesting finds. And again, I think that this is going to be, the target industries is going to be an ongoing watching what others are doing, watching where people are placing their businesses. There is a ton of movement right now along that I-35 corridor, and then even also on I-10 and moving into Houston. But again, and I think I showed a map last time, the place that is absent is our area for some of these businesses. So we're really trying to see what they did, learn from it, and see if we can make sure that we're putting ourselves in front of the decision makers for this. Tom and I had a conversation yesterday about some new avenues with site selectors that he's going to kind of bring me up to speed on, and we're going to work together on that as well, just to make sure that we're going to be in the right places. He had some great ideas on more direct involvement with site selectors that I loved. So those budget items are broad by design as we learn to make sure we're in the right places. Did that answer your question,
Yes,
Jeff?
thank you.
Okay, sure.
I bring that out too because I really want everybody to be focused on the idea of it's kind of all of our responsibility to be looking for companies that may be a fit here. I know a couple months ago we had a meeting with a company that was brought in by someone totally unrelated to ODC and the whole deal, but could potentially be down the road a really important project that we might get in. But that was simply because somebody familiar with our area knew somebody that knew somebody, and they said, hey, Odessa would be a great place. And and particularly when you look at things like, we talked about this in Ed Committee, things like carbon capture. We know we've got the Oxy, they're building their road in right now. And, that's going to be, I think, a bigger and bigger thing as companies push towards net zero type of mandates from their shareholders. And I think it's just important for us all to be constantly in our reading and our watching and our travels to be looking for, potential targets.
Yeah, and I would say anything that anyone finds, if they'll send our way, we're glad to look into it, research it, see what we can find. There have been a couple of those so far that were not on my radar that are now. There's some that we thought would be great, and as we're getting into it, like the state incentives, if we don't have those and other states do, we'll probably stay away from those. So anything like that we'll definitely look closer into. The Economic Development Department is also starting to, we've been talking, they're sharing their leads from the most recent trade show that they went to. They're giving us the dates. We're making sure that we're up to speed on what they are doing and making sure that we're complementing whatever it is that they already have in place as well.
Do you guys have any comments, feedback for Christy about the new branding ideas? And
Looks great.
All right. Okay.
you guys
Well,
don't be so talkative.
If we come up with ideas, just come in contact with you.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. If that works for me, and I
Okay.
think, yeah, and what we're planning on doing, I think, with the advertising committee is meeting at least quarterly. But here at the beginning, as I'm getting into this and trying to move things through, I'm available whenever we need to do that, as is Brittany Mann as well. So, yeah, just let us know, but send us anything you can think of, and we'll track it down.
I have a couple of ideas with that mining and query.
Please, please, because that's one I know you have the experience with, that as we're looking, it helps me to talk to someone who knows it rather than just reading something. So that would be wonderful.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Mr. Walker, Black Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening to everybody. I put my glasses on before I got up here and I almost tripped and fell. Only for reading. For lack of time to kind of save repetition, we're just going to hit the high points. Now that we've got the year started, we're really excited about our social media numbers. They were a little flat, but our actual walk-ins, emails, phone calls, they actually increased. We saw over 200 contacts for the month of January, which is, up from 170 the month before. So we are actually getting to the point where people are actually calling the office, asking for information. We're getting them the information. So they're finally following through. So this is really exciting for us because we're actually seeing people follow through with their programs and with the information we're giving them. Because a lot of the companies are individuals, because they're not to the point they're companies yet. We give them information and they kind of take it and they ponder it and look over it, and we never hear back from them. But there on January the 3rd, we sit down with the co-owners of the new eyelash salon and beauty salon studio. They actually, they went out and sought private investors. They did really well. They're up and going. We're getting to the point where we're going to do the ribbon cutting for them. So they went out, they hustled, they got investors, and they're ready to go. So they put their plan in motion and got up and running. They just kind of went out and beat the pavement and got investors.
Where will that be located at?
I will get with, they're getting ready to send me all of the address information, suite, exactly where that location is going to be. And then I will email it to everyone so they'll know exactly where this is going to be located. The food truck, the gentleman that is in the process of the food truck vendor and as also the restaurant, he is going to include a catering service. I know that's a lot, but he said he has the manpower in place that he can handle a situation like this. We've met with him twice. He's gone through the SBDC. Tyler has walked him through all of his paperwork, through all of his procedures, through all of his processes. So he's to the point now that he's looking for funding, and he can make this work. He has the manpower in place that he can operate a catering service, a restaurant, and even a food truck. So he's looking to, we wanted to make sure that he didn't bite off a little bit more than he could chew, but he's ready to go.
Is he opening 3 separate standalone business or using the restaurant as a commissary for catering?
Yes, he's gonna house pretty much everything out of the same
Yeah.
establishment. And that's I've been kind of touching base with Casey as little every now and then, but I'm gonna introduce him to her because we're to the point that he actually is looking for property. He is actually looking for something big enough to the point where he can warehouse his vehicles, his catering service, and his restaurant. So it's something a little different. It's unique. It's something that, that we see all three of those as those businesses, but a lot of times not together. So he has great ideals. We're pulling for this young man. He's really ambitious. He has done pretty much everything that Tyler and the SBDC has asked him to do. He started on this pretty much last year, and he is walking the process, and he's determined. He is really determined to get this off the ground and get it going. We are to the point that we're at January the 19th. We did our first workshop of the year with the SBDC, which was fear of financials. Tyler always has those numbers, and so the SBDC will share those too. We're trying to get a bigger clientele. We're going outside of the area. Some of our members that are even in the New Mexico area, we're trying to get them to become a part of sitting in on these workshops. That they're very helpful. It's not just for businesses here in Odessa. That information is good for all the business that's involved. So we're trying to get those numbers up. That's one of our goals for this year, is to get our numbers up with Tyler and the SBDC. We were contacted by an individual. This is someone that they pretty much had a part-time cleaning. They did this individually. This is something they did to supplement their income. And they were told about the Black Chamber. They called us. I sat down and met with them, and now they're in the process of getting their name, getting their LLC. Pretty much they are trying to get to the point where they are full service cleaning service here in Odessa. So they're looking to possibly employ 2, maybe 3 people. So we're bringing in the little smaller businesses, but they're on the tax base. So we want them to be productive and a part of Odessa, bringing in money, bringing in jobs. And that way maybe we can, we're excited because we're getting more calls. We're getting more people asking. I met with a company from Pecos. They're in the process of having something in this area. I'm going to meet with Renee now that she's back from Austin, because this is going to be something that will benefit the entire city of Odessa, and us working together will do a lot better, because they're going to bring possibly a seminar or a little small convention. So we're working with them, we've met with them, got them some information, and we gave them some information. So we're waiting to hear back. As a matter of fact, I needed to call them after this meeting is over. So any other questions? Comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
You.
Tyler Patton, SBDC. Looks like Tyler stand-in is here.
He's out sick. Nice way to put it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. So looking at last month, we had a little bit lower in our counseling sessions and counseling hours, but it was a shorter month. We also had the 2 days of weather out of the office, and then we had 2 of the counselors out on vacation for a couple of weeks. So we're a little bit lower by about 50, 60 count from last month at 149 this month. Our seminar count did increase from December. We held 5 seminars last month. We had about 90 participants for all of them. Let's see, we had a lender seminar, fear of financials, fact sheets, and I'm not sure what this other one is. Mainly because Tyler wrote these notes for me, so. So we had about 114 hours of training. We had 6 new businesses started for the month of January. Of those 6, there was an online paper goods, online services of some sort, a food truck, catering, and restaurant, an online luggage sales, real estate office, and a meat market. Of the 6 that we had, 2 of them were for here in Odessa. And for last month, we had $1,208,278 in total capital for our area, and 14 new jobs.
Any questions?
Any questions, comments? Oh, and we do have a training at the end of the month for franchises. And that one's gonna be an in-person at the Wagner. Thank you.
very much. Mr. Beecham.
Mr. Russell, how are you doing today? Last Friday, we had our I-14 implementation hearing or plan presented. We're starting to move forward with that. One good thing that will be coming out of that over the next year or so is they're doing a lot of economic analysis along the corridor, projections on growth, those sorts of things. And I think that information will be very helpful. I know we've already sent Christy and Brittany the information that we have. They'll be using that in some of our social media, but hopefully that'll be some good material for y'all too. We don't have $1 million budget to hire those kind of consultants. TxDOT doesn't think twice about it, but the good news is it'll be available to all of us for free and hopefully be helpful in the end. That being said, though, that meeting kind of leads back to, in our package, you'll notice our social media numbers are a little bit down. We're kind of re-gearing right now. I think you'll see it be a little bit lower for the next few months. We're pretty much just targeted towards the legislative session and our agenda items there, and then come May or so, we'll be a little bit more broad and expansive. One good news is today at noon started the public hearing on State Highway 302 to go ahead and get that 4-lane divided from where that currently ends at the Ector County line all the way over to US 285. And I think most of you and your businesses and dealings in this community understand the need of getting that as a really built-out, good corridor because it's important for servicing the entire area, but also pretty much makes Odessa a hub for that connection between the central platform of the Permian and the Delaware Basin. So we'll be sending out a link to that. It's a virtual public hearing. You just go look at maps online, which is even better. You don't have to listen to engineers, no offense, John Landgraf. And you can look at the pictures. But one thing I would ask is when you get that link, if you will click on it and look, we'd really appreciate that. TxDOT looks at the number of people who view that site, and so the more people we can get, the more that will push that project forward. So that'll be a good thing.
Is there a timeline on that project?
It'll go through February the 27th. So you'll have plenty of time, and that'll be in the information that we send out with the link. Will take you directly there. So, but again, we're excited about that. I think that's a good one. I know we've worked on that for a long time. We started with Representative Landgraf. A lot of that's in his district, and again, just very, very important as a corridor for our region here. One of the good news, I mean, we've been talking a little bit about things going on in the legislative session. This February, or in February, the month we're in today, kind of starts the revision cycle in the UTP for TxDOT every year, and that's where we get the majority of our additional funding for the area. So we're currently looking at some of the projects that are out there, including some of your leverage projects and what the status of those are, and maybe if we can bump a couple of those up for this funding cycle. That process is starting now. That won't complete until about August, but really in the next few months is when those projects and priorities will come about. So we'll probably be reaching back out. Mr. Crow serves on our board as part of this, but getting more involved with y'all on looking at some of those options that'll be available. So again, that's a good thing. Another second part to that is because of the additional severance revenue that's come into the state, TxDOT is going to increase their 11B, which is the discretionary funding for energy sector districts like ours. And they had a deal a long time ago that if they had excess severance, they would put more money into that program. And we weren't real sure if they would in fact follow through with that because there's been a lot of turnover. That program was started with Tryon-Lewis, but they have agreed to do that. So I think we'll see an impetus of funding there. So there may be a couple of different venues where we can get more money going forward and move that along. The final thing that I would talk to you about today is the map that I just passed out to you. The bane of my existence, I-27 and the Ports to Plains corridor. The first map there you'll see is kind of the overall corridor, all the studies, the discussions we've had, what was designated by Congress most recently as I-27, of course, includes the leg that comes down here to Midland and Odessa, and specifically goes directly between Midland and Odessa, so both of our communities benefit from that. The next map that you will see to it there with the red lines is the new map from TxDOT on their statewide and rural connectivity corridors that they're focusing on. And despite their insistence that we will never leave out Midland and Odessa on this, I think you can see from that map that in fact they specifically did leave out Midland and Odessa. So over the next few months, as we're also trying to work on these other things, one of the things that we'll have to do is try to get this situation fixed and make sure that we don't get left out of that. I've got some real concerns about this, and I think it really reflects poorly upon the character of TxDOT, to put it lightly, that they did this despite all the discussions and the reassurances they've given. So we're going to hold their feet to the fire on this. But I do think one thing that will be helpful in some of the discussions we had with them yesterday, we have been getting a message out of our own metropolitan organization, metropolitan planning organization, which represents Midland and Odessa, and both cities and both counties are represented on there, that we should reroute I-27 to the east of Midland. Now, that's not what is in law. It's not what was passed by Congress. It's not what we have pushed and supported. But that comment keeps coming out of there. It makes us look indecisive. I think we need it to come between the two cities. And I think one thing that we'll be asking from both city and the county here in Odessa and Ector County is to maybe get a little bit more aggressive back at the MPO and to stop those discussions of rerouting to the east of Midland. I think literally, and as somebody who lives in Midland, I can say this is a stupid thing out of Midland. If you reroute to the east of Midland, why in the hell wouldn't you just run it to Big Spring? It's anyway. But again, I think that's one that if y'all have the opportunity as you're talking in these discussions and all the things that you're doing, that it is important that we keep that route between Midland and Odessa, as we all agreed 20-some odd years ago. So with that, I'll wrap up unless you have any questions.
Questions?
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Mitchell. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You have the financial packet for December in your agenda packet. Again, as we've done the last couple of months, I'd like to focus on the middle page, page 4 of the report, that will tie out both the revenue and expenditure page, which is page 2, and then the summary of investments and cash on page 5. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth between those two. But on page 4, you'll see that under the revenues, you'll see the $1,110,386. Going back to page 2, you'll see that that is the amount of the sales tax proceeds that were received during the month of December. Going down on B on page 4, you'll see the change in fair value and investments were a total of $220,287, and it's broken down by interest in the various types of investments. You see government pools of just under $192,000. CDs and CDARs were $3,829, excuse me. Savings and money market, $19,461. And then under the municipal bonds that we have, you'll see that we did not purchase any securities during the month of December. So you'll see that we had the accrued interest receivable, and then that we actually received during the month, and then finally the amount that we accrued for the month of December. So the total interest, again, going back to page 2, interest income is $220,287. And then the next section, section C, talks about the change in fair value. This is the gain or loss on those securities. We buy them at a particular coupon to yield a different rate depending upon what market conditions are at the time. And then that is revalued each month, and then, of course, it comes back to par when those bonds mature. So this month, we actually had a gain in those securities of $26,499. And finally, on page 2, you'll see that the section under actual month-to-date for expenditures were $75,289, and that's what was reduced on the fifth page there under the sales and withdrawal amount. So I hope that kind of follows the flow of what the financial statements had. Finally, the other piece of information I wanted to deliver is the sales tax information for the month of month of February that we just received. The ODC sales tax collections for February 2023 were $1,338,340, which is an increase of $185,291, or 16.07% increase when compared to February 2022. On a fiscal year-to-date basis, the total collected for the first 5 months of fiscal year 2023 is $5,939,403, which is an increase of $1,130,004, or 23.50% when compared to the first 5 months of fiscal year 2022. So again, it continues to hold very strong and steady through this process. With that, I'd be happy to address any questions or issues that the board may have.
Yeah, I noticed that in the because it looks like we were budgeted at about $958,000 average over our.
That sounds about right, yes, sir.
Deal, and we're running, and this is gonna put us up even a little bit more, but we're running at about $1,150,000 or something per month.
In that range, yes, sir.
That's a good thing.
It is. The sales tax receipts have continued to be very strong during this fiscal year.
Any questions for Mr. Fry? Okay, thank you, Larry.
We do need to take action to accept that report, if it's okay.
Do I have a motion to approve the financials as presented?
Second.
Ms. Holloman, who seconded it? Mr. Kirk? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll introduce the next item as well, if that's acceptable
You
with
bet.
you. The city's, or actually in this case, the ODC's annual financial audit has been completed, and Mr. Greg Peterson with the Weaver firm is here to present the results of that audit to the board. After that, the requested action would be to accept the audited financial statements, if that is the pleasure of the board. But Mr. Peterson is from the Houston office. He's a partner with Weaver and is going to present the information.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Yes, I believe y'all all have a copy with y'all electronically that y'all can follow along. I'll try not to skip around too much, and if I get going, y'all want me to stop answering questions, y'all just yell at me and we'll stop and we'll answer questions, all right? So the whole purpose of an audit is for the auditor to render an opinion on the financial statements, on the reliability of the information that's being presented. So it's my pleasure to inform you that we are going to be rendering unmodified opinions on the financial statements. So that is the highest level of assurance that you can receive in an audit. As part of our audit, we look at more than just the numbers. Part of our procedures is also to obtain an understanding of the internal controls that are in place at ODC. And report on any findings that we may have on internal controls. As part of our procedures, we do not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls as we evaluated those. So that's kind of just the overview there of the results of the audit. You really can't ask for better results in a financial statement audit than unmodified opinions and no findings when it relates to internal controls. So what I'd like to do next is just talk about some of the numbers and kind of go over other parts of the financial statements. And actually, I want to point out on page 7 of this report is the MD&A section, the Management Discussion and Analysis. What that section is basically kind of like the Reader's Digest of what happened this year at ODC and gives some comparative information. So that's a great read if you just wanted to take a quick 5-page read of what happened during the year. That's the section I want to look at. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into some of the actual numbers, a little bit more detail that are presented in some of these financial statements. So what I'd like to do is turn to page 15 of the report. So what we're looking at on page 15 is the balance sheet of ODC. We're looking at the general fund. So when we look at that, we're going to look at the ODC has total assets of $71.4 million. The biggest piece of that is cash and cash equivalents. That is a total of $68.7 million of your total assets. And that's going to be comprised primarily of cash and cash equivalents, investment pool securities, all very liquid and low risk type investments. Next, you have $2.3 million in receivables. What that is, that's this sales tax receivable. So that's September's sales tax that haven't been collected as of the end of the year. So it's just receivable at year end. And then we had some prepaid items of about $350,000. And that's just a cash advance of the next quarter's payments for the Odessa Chamber. So those payments get paid quarterly. The cash went out before year end, so therefore we have a prepaid at year end. The total $350,000, biggest piece of that was the Odessa Chamber. So it's just a timing difference of when the cash actually left ODC. Total liabilities of $5.3 million. Accounts payable is $93,000 of that. That's just for general services accounts payable. Next, we have contracts payable of $4.7 million. So that is for incentive grants earned that have not been paid as of year end. So the biggest component to that is UTPB of $2.2 million and Nasaro of $1.9 million. There's the two biggest components of that $4.7 million contracts payable. And then we have a due to primary government of $447,000. And that is just a pulled cash reconciling item with the city. Sometimes the city will, because they all participate in the same pooled account, the city may use some of its cash to cover certain expenses of ODC. And then once ODC gets cash, whether they have to, I guess, liquidate some type of investment pool to repay back the city. There's a due to, due from. They clear out every month. But as of year end, there was a $447,000 due to the city. Next, we look at fund balance. And we see that fund balance has lots of different categories here. The non-spendable portion is equal to your prepaids. It's non-spendable because the cash has actually already gone out. So next we have committed, and what the board commits is essentially equal to the remaining balance on these business incentive grants, training grants, and then other facade grants and things of that nature. So everything that's been approved but not yet paid essentially is committed. That total is $27.4 million.
And that's for the whole length of that contract?
That's for the
Like
whole length of
Nacero
that.
deal, that would be the whole $20 million less what we paid out, okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and that is actually, if we turn to page 30, so this is where we're gonna start jump back forward a little bit. We actually detail specifically by contract what that committed balance is comprised of. So the two biggest components of, again, the $27.4 million is the Odessa College District Health Science Building of $5 million, and then the Nacero of $18 million. Those are the two biggest components of that $27 million balance that is committed. Going back to page 15, the next category of fund balance that you have is assigned fund balance. So this represents the amounts assigned for the TxDOT projects, and I believe there's about 70,000 left in the housing project as well. But the biggest component is TxDOT. And then you have $29.3 million essentially unassigned fund balance. So that is fund balance that's available for future contracts to be assigned. And ending total liabilities and fund balance is $71.4 million. Next, we'll turn to page 16. This is the income statement of the ODC. So total revenues of $12.8 million. The biggest piece of that is the sales tax portion of your revenues. There was a 17% increase in sales tax revenues over prior year. And as Larry mentioned, it sounds like that number is continuing to increase. It sounds like that's up to almost 20% increase over the numbers that we're looking at right now. The next biggest component of your total revenues is investment income at $345,000. There were better rates, returns on investments in FY22 than we had seen in FY21. So it was about an increase of about $150,000 in investment income year over year. Total expenditures were $6.7 million. So the biggest component of that is your incentive expense. So even though it hasn't gone out as cash yet, we still expend it in the current year because that's when those incentives were earned. So the $4.8 million in incentive expense represents the amount of those contract incentives that were earned in FY22. The next biggest component of your expenses were the service contracts. The biggest one being with the Odessa Chamber, representing about $982,000 in contract expense. So when we net your revenues and your expenses, we add it to your beginning fund balance, you ended up the year with an ending fund balance of $66.1 million, which is a $6 million increase over prior year. Next, we will flip, if we can, we'll flip back to page 26. And what this schedule is, this is just a schedule of your budget to actual for ODC, for the general fund. And it just takes a quick glance at, what we thought, or where you thought the numbers would be, and then what they actually were. So for your total revenues, you actually had a positive variance of $3.2 million, primarily being your sales tax being significantly higher than what was budgeted. And then your expenditures, you had a positive variance there of $51 million, the biggest swing there being incentives. And that's just because when you budget your total available funds that are to be paid out through incentives, but that's not necessarily what actually gets earned in a particular year. So that's why you had such a large swing, positive swing in your expenditures when you look at budget to actual. Really what we're looking at here is we want to look for any unfavorable variances. That's, as an auditor, we don't want to see that management is spending more than what the board approved in their budgets. So again, it's a good sign to see here that there are no unfavorable variances when we look at budget to actual. So that wraps up kind of the numbers that I want to look at. Just wanted to point out that, as I mentioned, when we turn back to page 30, in the back of the report, we have these supplemental schedules that detail out those amounts that are committed. And then we also provide a supplementary schedule that shows the amount of incentives earned. So it actually has some historical information there, so you can compare what was incentive expense for current year versus prior year, just to look at those differences and have some historical context as to how much incentive expenses are being earned each year. But that wraps up my presentation, and I'm happy to address any questions y'all may have.
So I noticed from one number, it looked like we grew about $6 million from 60 to 66 million in kind of let me flip back up here and tell you, it was on page like 4 or 5.
Was that your,
That was in the little Reader's Digest portion, so.
okay.
The fund balance
Yes.
increased
Uh-huh.
by about $6.1 million. I'm assuming that's just again tied back to increased sales tax revenue, things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
But that seems to
Absolutely.
be kind of the trend for the last couple of years. We're growing our income, but we haven't been, with the exception maybe of Nacero, if we kind of net them out, because that was a big one. But it seems like we're not growing our incentive payments out. It was interesting to me to look at the very back of at the audit report, where you kind of give the whole historical of all
Yes.
the grants that have been done by ODC since its inception. And it was interesting to me to look at that, and this is not really an auditing question, but I kind of just throw this out there for our board. There have been a lot of years where we've had more companies that we've helped, more incentives that we've done, more things. It seems like we've kind of troughed down for whatever reason. I don't know the reason for that, but again, if you kind of take out the big one, which is Nacero, and you look at the dollar amounts, it seems like year by year we're growing our deal, which is great if we were a traditional business. But really, what we are is a group that has been put in trust to use these funds effectively to help promote business in the community. And so I have to shift gears in my own brain to kind of get there with it. But our job is not to grow our bank account. Our job is to incentivize businesses and get more jobs here. And so, I just kind of make that as a comment. It kind of struck me in looking through all that, and asking, kind of everybody in the room, what can we do to try to find more businesses that we can incentivize to come here. And it's kind of a good problem to have in a way, but I also don't think that our job is just to build our bank account.
I concur, yeah.
So, any other questions for Mr. Peterson?
All right.
All right. So we need a motion to approve the audit report as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Kirk, Mickey seconded it. Seconded by Melanie. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll go into the committee reports. As Mr. Mansky said, we had partnership scheduled. It got knocked out by weather, so we're trying to get that rescheduled at this point, so we'll let everybody know when we get a new date for that, and get everybody rounded back up. Tax incentive, I don't believe you guys met.
Did not.
Advertising, we pretty much have covered. We did have a meeting, it was during some of the weather and all that, but Christy and her team did a great job. Christy and Brittany did, presenting that to us and making sure it kind of all got funneled out, so we really appreciate their efforts through that. Any information on DOI Grants Design Review Board?
Haven't had anything come across.
Okay, so nothing pending. We'll hear from DOI here in a moment, I believe. We didn't have them on here, did we? We've got a couple things to talk about that they'll, a couple particular projects. Compliance committee met. I know we've got a couple things on it. Is there anything that you guys would like to speak to in terms of compliance other than the grant approvals that we're going to talk about here in a minute?
I don't think there's anything else.
Okay. And then legal services committee, any?
We didn't meet, it was my fault, I was sick, so. you need to-
What an
I
excuse.
share the blame.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so we'll continue to work on that, and hopefully have something to present here shortly. We do have in your board packet the proposed contract for current media. We're very thankful that Christy and Brittany and the gang have kind of worked on speculation here and done some of their preliminary work as we kind of finalize their contract. Does anyone have any questions or comments or things that we need to talk about in terms of the our contract with current media partners?
I have one request that I had emailed, and then I was told just to bring it up to the board. We had our attorney look, everything's great, we're happy. Just wanted to see if we could put a payment terms in there, just a net 30 payment in there, if that would be okay. So, just add terms to it. That's our only comment, so.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll, the request is to add net, kind of a payment term section.
Does that work for city financial?
Yes, from the city's standpoint, the city issues checks, check run every week. So assuming that we have the invoices on a timely basis, the net 30 would not be any issue at all to
Okay.
the city.
And I have asked Christy and all as they generate invoices to send those to the ad committee. We'll have just a few days to review that, give a stamp of approval to it, and then it'll go to city finance for payment. And so that way we can all get a look at it, make sure we know what we're spending. So I'll need a motion to approve the current media contract, or is there any other discussion? Anybody? So I'll need a motion to approve the current media contract with the one amendment of putting a little payment term section in there for net 30 payment. And so do we have a motion?
I'll move so.
Mr. Robinson, second.
Second.
Mr. Kirk. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. We're excited to have you guys on board. We now move to discuss and consider the grant application for Frost Project GCC. Do we have somebody from compliance that's presenting that? I thought Peggy was going to be here to do it, but Tracy?
Since I was there. Okay, so we did not have this ready. It was not included in the packet, but I did give you each a copy of the report before the meeting started. The Compliance Committee met last Tuesday. They had met previously on this project, but had a couple of things that they wanted clarified from the company, which we got that information back. So they met again last Tuesday, or a week ago Tuesday, to go back over the project, and did go ahead and approve the $2 million grant paid out over a 5-year period that the company had requested. And because of the fact that they had qualified with our matrix and the amount of the capital investment that they're putting into this new expansion project in Ector County, the Compliance Committee voted to just require in the contract $100 million on the capital investment instead of $400 million. Of course, they're going to at least put in the $400 million anyways because of all the new equipment costs. But because of the difference, you know, in what they were asking for and what they qualified for, that's what they asked. So the job creation grant is going to be $1,118,588, and the capital investment grant of $881,412 for a total grant of $2 million, paid out over 5 years.
And I think you guys, from what I understand, kind of beat this up pretty good in compliance.
They did.
A couple of times.
A couple of times, yes.
Good for y'all.
Yes,
But,
yes, but, you know, there were some clarification on sales and exactly where most of the sales were, you know, in Ector County and not in just, because they have a couple of other locations in the Permian Basin area, or considered their Permian Basin area. But most of the sales that they reported on this are going to be based out of this facility here in Ector County.
and this is as I understand, they're removing an old kiln and putting in a new higher capacity kiln.
Correct.
To replace it, is the
Yes.
capital improvement part of it?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
It's about 3 times as big, so.
Yeah.
A lot of product.
Yeah, a lot more product, a lot more energy efficient. It's gonna last, what lifespan on it? They're saying like 50 years?
50-year lifespan.
Yeah,
Oh,
50-year lifespan, so, you know, you're gonna put that kind of investment into the community where they're gonna be here a while.
Oh.
So,
Any questions, comments?
we just need,
Okay.
then I guess approval on that so we can get a contract
Okay.
with,
So,
Legal.
so what we need is a motion to approve the Compliance Committee recommendation for a $200 million grant to be sent to city legal for preparation of the actual contract.
So
just
moved.
$2 million.
$2 million.
$2 million.
What did I say?
They would probably like to have 200 million,
Oh,
but, you know.
goodness, okay.
Just $2 million.
$2 million. Let's make sure we're clear with that. So I had a motion from Melanie, a second from
Second.
Mr. Robinson. All those in favor of a $2 million grant approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Don't go away. I think we've got UTPB, discuss and consider UTPB compliance report.
And there were no findings on that report, so it just goes directly to you guys for approval of those grant payments.
Okay, and
Compliance did not have to review that.
will you just kind of tell us real quick what this grant was for?
It was for the, oh my gosh, we've got like 3 different ones. This one was for the, science, what was it, the athletic. Yeah, help me along here. It was the athletic, yeah, kinesiology thing. Yes,
Okay.
thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Okay, so Weaver did the compliance report.
Right, and I believe that there's 2 years on that.
Two more
Yeah,
years left on that.
Well, no, I think that was 2 years of the compliance report. No,
Oh, okay.
I believe
Okay,
that
gotcha.
it was 2 payments? Oh, there were 2 different, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, there were 2 different contracts. One of them was for the kinesiology and the other one is for the, Tina, is it the sports, the other facility? It was the weight room and the other things that they had over there that they're doing all the other classes. Fitness center, thank you.
And did compliance committee review those? or
No, they did not
just
have to
kind of-
review them because they were in compliance. So if Weaver does not find any
There's not
Discrepancy.
discrepancies, then it goes directly
Okay,
to you guys to board for approval.
Okay. So, any questions, comments? Open for a motion to approve the UTV grant request.
Motion approved.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then the last one we've got, Tracy, is consider and discuss ED agreement for Taylor Service Solutions.
Right, now you guys approved that last month, but after the approval, you wanted the contract to come back to you for review. So I have not heard any feedback from anybody on whether they needed any changes made to it. We have not sent it to the company pending your approval.
Could you maybe, Dan, could you maybe step us through what the changes were that we made? Or Tina?
Oh, and Tina's going,
We'll ask Tina to come up, because she would know.
the changes for the Taylor services.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the only change was the capital investment. So they left the jobs the same. Let me.
Could I request that the next time we have a change that you give us both a red line copy and a clean copy so that we can easily see those changes?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can do
Make
that.
that this
This was just so long ago.
Yeah.
I think I actually started from scratch with a brand-new contract, because
Okay.
the form itself had changed since the last time I prepared this, so this is actually a brand-new contract.
Okay, so the grant amount is $862,579, and that'll be paid out over 5 years?
That's what I was given, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Taylor is if I recall, they're expanding their existing facility and building on and also adding new jobs.
Correct, yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, you guys approved the grant last month, and I thought it was just a contract review. Y'all had not. Yeah, you said once you, whenever we're gonna do the contract, y'all asked for it to come back this month just for you to look at the contract, I guess. I was just thought there were maybe some things that y'all wanted to look at on the contract to see if you wanted to make changes to. But the dollar amount, geez, and I didn't even bring that with me today, because we had already approved all that. Yeah, but they were adding, I think it was 31 new jobs or 20, they were gonna maintain 31 and add 25, I believe it was, yeah. And I'm sorry, I didn't bring that with me because it was approved last month.
Okay. Do we have any comments on the actual contract draft? No comments? Okay, so
Are
we'll,
y'all happy with the way that the capital investment piece is? Do y'all feel like that's specific enough?
give me a paragraph number, Madeline, if you don't mind.
Let me get to it. It's 2.3, the entitled investment. I know that there've been some disquiet over what constitutes a capital investment. I just want to make sure everybody on the board is comfortable with the way it's set out here so we don't run into that.
2.3?
So we do have that tied to Ector County, what's in addenda A, let's see there.
How are you with that, Melanie?
I mean, I'm fine with it.
I mean, I think this one does tie it all to Ector County, which was the major concern. And it clearly lays out that these are the facilities that are going to be built at that Ector County facility. So I
Correct.
think that was I think that was the main thing that we may have been looking for, was just to make sure that we're tying all this to something that's happening here.
Right, okay.
Well, but do you feel like, I mean, if they have to expend capital for design or anything, if that, are y'all expecting that all expenses will be contracted for in Ector County, or?
No, but I think what we're looking for is that at the end of the day, all of the facilities will be here.
And they will be, yes.
I think it's a little different than Nacero, which is where this came up with, where we had everything being done, all the work being done outside of our jurisdiction. It was being done in Houston. And I think that's where that kind of rub came of, and that combined with the fact, and I think this is very different than Nacero too, because this is gonna be a pretty short duration project of building. So I think it's just a lot simpler than, to think about something like this than it is something like the Nacero.
And the design company.
Repeat of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, then, and the design company that they're using is a local Odessa company too, so.
Okay.
So it's-
Well, this actually says 80% of all physical assets to be purchased in the Odessa area. It doesn't really deal with the design aspect of it, but I think in this project, unlike Nacero, that design's going to be a very small percentage of the project.
Right,
Whereas Nacero has been all of the
Yeah,
project so far.
yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? We have a motion to approve the contract as presented for Taylor Services.
So moved.
Second.
Melanie, Dr. Kirk. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Discuss and consider amendment to downtown infrastructure improvement grant with Icon Sports and Entertainment, DBA Patrick Clay's Icon Tavern.
Excuse me, if we can have a motion to remove from the
Oh,
table?
yes, thank you. You told me that before, and I just totally blew past it. We'll need a motion to remove, we tabled this at the last meeting. We'll need a motion to remove this from the table.
So moved.
Need a second?
Yes.
Somebody second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor of removing it from the table? Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
Ms. Holman's abstaining because her firm does some work for a related party. So the motion passes, so we've removed it from the table. We'll turn the mic over to you guys.
Hi, I'm John Harridge. I'm the representative today for Downtown Odessa. This is our interim, Elizabeth Pareto, and she has some handouts for everyone, the additional bids you had asked for at the last time. So we do have those now. And Sean Rodriguez is the tavern owner. It is looking fabulous. Kitchen equipment's coming in a couple weeks. We've got sprinkler systems going in. We've got a lot of stuff happening. If you drive by and look, it looks like ants. There are so many people there working, and it's really moving quick and looking great. So I'm gonna let Sean go over the bids that he has brought to us so we can get the contract amended, get to moving forward, and get this place open soon.
Hello, Board. I believe last time when we tabled this discussion, I had 1.5 bids. I was half a bid short on that. I did get that bid. If you'll look on the APCO fire protection application on the next page, there is a current bid for the fire alarm systems from Absolute Fire and Protection. The bid for that was $16,863, which was quite a bit lower. It's about $7,000 lower than the bid from Western States. That is the bid that we were missing, and I'm providing that today.
I have a question. Were there two bids on the installation part of it?
Yeah, you have two bids.
Yes, you guys have two bids.
On the fire suppression and
Yes.
two on the alarm system.
Yeah, the Western States
Not the
was.
alarm part of it,
I'm
fixed-
sorry?
The fixed part of it, there were two bids on that part?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So what was the total bit, I know we had the fire
Yeah.
suppression equipment, then we have the alarm system equipment. So
Yeah.
what was the total for those two that you're asking for the?
The total, $54,000 and $54,090 was for the fire suppressant system for Western States. And for the actual alarm system was $16,863, which combined was a total of, well, I'll have to calculate that. It's just a little over 70,000 on that. It did drop down. The initial bid that we had from Western States for the fire alarm system was at $24,700. So we were able to get a better bid at $16,863 for the alarm systems. And that is the bid we're going with.
Okay.
And one thing I really like is Absolute is a local company. So if you ever have problems, questions, or anything, they're local. And I like the work they do a lot better. There's another one we could have used that's out of Lubbock. They're not good. And so the one he did choose, I think, is the best one.
So the grant request will be for 50% of $71,763, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so 50%. So somebody do the math for me there. I can't do that, my noggin.
It's 54.
Do the two totals.
Yeah, it'll be that 54,090. And the,
So I get 35,881.50.
4,000 plus the 16.
We've got $54,090.
$90.
Okay.
Okay, $54,090, okay.
And then we have 16,863,
Okay.
which is a little over $7,000 less than the initial bid that we had on the fire alarm systems.
Or if you want to do 200 million, we would love it.
Yeah, yeah.
We would love
We wouldn't
that.
have a problem
We
with
could
that.
have a heck of a tavern, couldn't we?
Yeah.
So 70,953 at 50%. We're looking at a grant request of 35,476.50.
Or do we need to say that it's the total amount, and in the grant it does say that you only pay 50% of it?
We'll do both. That
Okay.
way we'll have it.
Just to
We'll
cover,
have
it
it
so
in
we
the
have no
minutes, yeah.
questions in the future.
Yeah,
Please, sir.
we'll scotch it down. So the total, what they're asking for based on the bids is 70,953 is the total project cost. Under the terms of the agreement, owner pays 50%, he'd get a grant for 50. So the actual payout would be 35,476.50.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right. Any questions or comments? Okay, entertain a motion for that grant amount.
Second.
Mr. Robinson, Mr. Navarrete, second, all those in favor? Aye. Ms. Holman will abstain. So that is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you very much. Mr. Kerr with a presentation regarding impact fees.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Board. Sorry for sounding a little rough and being a little behind, as usual probably, but I've been fighting a head cold this week. That's just a copy of the ordinance reference. So I'll go ahead and introduce, of course, John Landgraf is the chairman of the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee with the impact fee study. Farah Hernandez and Joe Tucker worked a lot on these, and handling that, impact fees. Yvonne and Hal Feldman, Yvonne and Mike can work with us, in all these areas as well. So I've kind of thrown together a bit of a presentation. It's got some detail in here. There's a few things that I didn't get in here that I will, and I can send you all a copy of this, hopefully tomorrow. Y'all can have a full copy of it. So what I'm planning to do is kind of just touch through the process that it takes to develop the impact fees, talk a little bit about how those numbers are calculated or developed, and then how we implement it. But so foundation and purpose, touch on that. I'll try and go through these things a little bit quickly. If you need me to slow down or anything like that, just go right ahead and I'll come back and things. But then the impact fee development, the status of the funds that we have right now, how things have been proceeding. The calculation worksheet I don't have on here for you, but I will. And we can pull that up if you need to. That's available on our website. Examples, that's a couple of, I think there were a couple of locations that y'all might have been interested in recently that we've had some discussions on. And so I don't reference them in terms of who they are or their location specifically, but a couple of kind of show you how their impact fees are in comparison, say, of Midland and things like that. And then resources I'll put in. That'll be their website location. There's all of our information is really there for you to pull up our impact fee study, to pull up the maps on the programs and things like that, so you can see some of that. And then I'll put our names and things like that for anybody who wants contact. And so engineers, computers just don't work for engineers. Or maybe engineer doesn't work for the computers. Okay, foundation and purpose. Impact fees were established in 1987. Texas was the first state in the nation to instate impact fees. They're under Chapter 395 of the Local Government Code, and it gave the local governments authority to do them. Some of the real purposes of the impact fee structure in the state legislation is really to limit the cities from trying to overextend the exposure of the developer to certain costs. Communities in the past have used many different methods of trying to recover cost. And so this gives a guideline, very specific. I mean, it's got requirements and regulations as to how much a city can try to achieve and to make sure that the developers are all treated equitably. So if you're developing an impact fee, its calculation is supposed to be equitable, such that if one's doing the same project in the same region, then they both would have the same impact fee if they're identical and that type of thing. So the impact fees for the cities and things like that help us to have a means to recover some of the cost of the infrastructure that we have to build, larger infrastructure, okay? And so it offers us the opportunity to have the developer contribute some of the costs that go with that. And in general, the developer, when we say that, the fees are assessed at the time of the building permit. So you have different levels of what you might call developers. This is Tom talking in Tom's language, but you know, you have a landowner, and he may sell it to somebody who actually breaks up the lots and develops them. Or he may actually break up the lots and develop them and sells them to someone who actually builds the buildings. The actual fees occur when the building permits are issued or when a water meter is placed. These are one-time fees, and Chapter 395 develops a structure to limit the recovery funds to appropriate amounts consistently and equitably. Find one method and stick with it. Again, the purpose is to establish consistent methodologies. It's for balanced funding combination that recognizes the benefits of growth, So we do want, I think all communities really want to grow and don't want to limit people from being able to do what they want to do. They just want to try and be equitable about where those costs are recovered. That's the general purpose. There's a maximum assessment impact fee that is established through the legislation so that you do not specifically cover the entire cost of a roadway, water, or wastewater project. So we can't charge fees that would recover the entire cost of, say, some of the projects you might have heard recently, Line P, Line Q, major sewer trunks, they're 54-inch, 48-inch, large trunks, Faudree Road. We are not able to recover the full amount of those costs. We still pay a significant amount of that cost out of the general tax basis in that. And the sewer lines, it would have been out of the wastewater fees, water wastewater fees. In fact, the impact fees in general will provide us about 10% of what our actual cost exposure is. The overall concept, determine the maximum assessable fee. So under Chapter 395, it has methodologies that are defined there. And so you define what is the maximum fee that the city could charge. And then it goes to council. If the council elects to do impact fees, the council can set those impact fees anywhere it wants from $0 up to that maximum fee. They can't set it above that. And Odessa elected to set their fees below Midland's to make sure that we weren't allowing Midland to surpass us perhaps in competition. And so that's, yeah. In the development, the city council engaged Kimley Horn and Associates out of their Fort Worth office. They have a lot of experience in impact fee development. They worked with Midland on theirs. They worked with Lubbock on theirs. I believe they're working with Amarillo, but they've worked with many cities in the Metroplex and East Texas and other areas. Most cities of our size or larger in Texas do use impact fees. It's a very common practice in the state of Texas. City Council appointed a Capital Improvements Advisory Board. I was pulling those names. I was going to put all those up here. But there's one is appointed by each council member. The legislation requires that a certain percentage of those people have to be developers or development builders or development personnel, people that work on the development side, so that they have ample representation. And I think our board, our committee had a very good representation, and I can tell you they worked very hard to be fair for both sides actually, but they certainly represented both sides well, I think, and appreciated their work. John was very instrumental in all that. Sorry. SEAC, with the guidance of Kimley Horn, they facilitate facilitation of city staff development. You start by building a land use land use plan, and that has to do with the fact that, and planning had a lot to do with this. They already have land use plans that are projecting into the future and everything, and but that is instrumental. And when you look at an area, what amount of demand for traffic, water, sewer may be commercial, what may be high-density population, what areas may be low-density population, helps them to recognize that in terms of the calculation and how those costs may need to be distributed for capacities that need to be done. So that's in the wrong place, but that's this is one of the CIP maps that we have. Let's see if I have it here. Okay, this is the land use map that was developed for the program. The different colors will be the different types of properties that are expected, whether they be industrial, residential. I think the yellow is primarily residential, and so you see a significant portion of all of the area would be residential. City Council considers and adopts the land use assumptions as prepared by the SEAC, Community Oriented staff, and as commented by SEAC. So there's, SEAC makes their comments as to whether they see some recommendations or other things. The SEAC develops the service areas for the impact fee determination. So when it comes to water and sewer, generally those service areas are going to be the full area of the city, and even into, I think the ETJ, and some of these guys straighten me up if I get out of some of these things, but, and it's a one area for each, say one water service area and one wastewater service area. I think the reasons for that, as I understand it, is, of course, the water and sewer systems are completely tied together. You have really central plants for both of those, and so this is the practice that is used. So a fee that is established for a water fee or a sewer fee is going to be the same proportionately throughout the system. It'll be based on a service unit, and a service unit for Odessa, the smallest water meter size we have is 3/4 inch. And so 3/4 inch is one service unit. Now, if you get a 2-inch meter, it's going to be several service units because it has the volume achievement of several 3/4 inch. And so water and sewer are both based on your water meter size because we don't meter sewer on an individual basis. Roadways are limited to a 6-mile diameter. So if a roadway such as Fodry is being built, by regulation, you can't go beyond, say, 3-mile radius or 6 mile. That 6-mile diameter will develop an area. It cannot be charged. That cost of that one cannot be charged to a developer in another area. And so we have 3 service areas, and we'll kind of show you those in a minute. But that's where roadway is different than water and sewer. The state established that. My understanding would be that, you wouldn't normally expect somebody over on the other side of town to normally be using that roadway or having that impact. Consultant uses the land use assumptions to develop growth and corresponding capacity needs. So they also do population growth. These models are, the impact fee is study is for a 10-year time frame, and then every 5 years you are required to update the plan, and then it continues to go forward in that sense. But it's based on a 10-year time frame. Again, that was the land use map. These are the roadway service areas. 1 in the north, 2 in the south, and 3 on the west. East, I'm sorry. Impact fee development, again, we talked a little bit about service units are utilized in the impact fee calculations. Service units also, when it comes to roadway, the service unit is called a vehicle mile, and it's associated with a vehicle utilizing a mile of a lane. And it's based on their PM peak usage, and these statistics are built across the country or state anyway, and that say a resident, how many vehicle miles would a resident or residential property normally use, has a certain number of service units, whereas a retail agency would have a significantly larger number of service units because they're going to have more people, more miles that are being transversed. Water and wastewater, again, is based on meter size. The SEAC develops capital improvements plan projects for each service area, so we'll touch on that in a minute to show you. In each of those service areas, there's going to be certain roads, and those are going to add up to a certain amount of cost. And that cost is then what is used with the land use and those types of things to help distribute that cost around the project. But again, we do not recover 100% of cost. It's a much less amount. The consultant develops cost estimates for each project. So if you look at area 1 on the left, those roadways are in this impact fee. So you'll see that 61st Street, Dawn Avenue, Grandview, Dawn going north up to Yukon, up to 87th Street, and Yukon running from Andrews Highway over to the Loop. Those are all roadways that are considered growth-oriented, that are going to either have to be expanded or constructed. Some of them are new construction, and some of them are enhancement or growth, like Yukon and Grandview. And so they would do a cost estimate they do a cost estimate for each of those projects to establish a dollar value of what the recovery will be based on, which is less than the actual. And section 2, you'll see we have Murphy as an expansion road for industrial developments further to the west. There's a little piece of JBS, I think, just north of the city limits. The roadway areas also have to be in the city limits. You cannot go outside the city limits. Water and sewer, you can go outside the city limits to the ETJ. And again, these areas should be defined based on your 10-year projections of where you think you could be. And so this is area 3, and this is our heaviest roadway area. You've got Faudree Road there. You've got Yukon from the Loop over to Faudree. We've got 56th Street from the Loop over to Faudree. There's, I think, see, that's Parks Bell Boulevard is that furthest most east-west red line. Yukon's on here. That's now been completed. And then there's a stretch of Faudree going north. County Road 1300 on the far east, and a little segment of Yukon that's caught in the far east. And Dorado, I think, on the end there. So this is the wastewater impact fee CIP map. You'll see a lot of, so starting from your bottom right, you see that's the Darrington plant, and that was Line P that comes up to the north. Line P originally was going to go along I-20, but that construction length was going to be extraordinarily deep and very, very expensive. So we extended it on up to Business 20 before we moved it east. That one, and then Line Q extends off of that on the east side, going way up into the Parks Bells areas, and the others serving future growth to the north. Down on the southwest, you'll see some extensions there for developments heading out towards I-20. So going back to the water map up here, you'll see, of course, our growth is heavily in the north, northeast especially. And so for the Parks Bell area to continue to grow out, we are going to have to build, if we're going to extend our city limits out there, we have to extend a 24-inch up there on what we call the 100th Street alignment. And it'll head over towards Faudree. There'll be an elevated tank out there. We need a 2 million gallon elevated tank. And then quite a bit of infrastructure there. You see larger lines and those things. So they're all part of the impact fee analysis. And then on the west side, we're needing to extend a transmission main down from 42nd Street at the Loop and bring it down to the southwest so that we can start to serve more of the area along I-20. Service units, as we talked about, are utilized in the calculations. The the CAC develops a capital improvements plan. We just talked about that. Develop cost estimates for each project. So the consultant determines the recoverable project cost. So there's a maximum project cost or the project cost itself. And then through the development, through the legislation and such, the consultant calculates what can be recovered. So if you look at the roadway item, which is the third bullet, I think there, the recovery cost, the recoverable cost for us, and this is all of the roadway areas, is $71 million out of $216 million of actual cost. This is what the state will allow us to recover. This is not what we're going to recover, but this is what the state will allow us to recover. And so that would be if we use the maximum assessable fee, which is, and that's about 33% of the actual cost. Water, our projects would indicate a recoverable amount of just 5.2 million out of 55 million of actual cost. And so that's about 9.3% of that. Wastewater recoverable cost would be about almost 10 million out of $89 million. So in using those figures, the maximum accessible impact fee calculation would be for roadway, and Road 1 would be $2,726 per vehicle mile. Now, again, that depends on how many vehicle miles are associated with the development. If you're talking about a gasoline station, say a gasoline station has 4 pumps, that one will have a certain number of vehicle mile units per pump that then would be calculated, not at this fee because this is the maximum and we don't do it, but I mean, that's the type of number you would use. Whereas if you were, say somebody put in a really big one, you had 20 pumps, it'd be that much different. So the reason that 3 service areas have different fees is because the amount of road work associated with each service area is different, as you saw in the maps. Segment 2 only has a couple of roadways that we're talking about, Murphy and JBS. There's just not a whole lot of development happening down there, so there's not a whole lot of roadway expected to need to be done in that area, so you don't have as high a maximum fee that could be achieved. And the maximum fee for water across all of our service area would be $778 for a 3/4 inch meter. Larger meters would be more, same. And then the maximum fee for sewer with a 3/4 inch meter would be $1,162. So the SEAC, with assistance from Kimley Horn and staff, develops recommendations for impact fee structure. Fees will be reduced in order to maintain a cushion below the Midland fees. And this was done. This is already really, all of these things are complete. But so the SEAC makes a recommendation to council as to what they see as the implementation of the fee structure. How much should we charge? And one of the key items was obviously we don't want to push people to Midland. They were looking at a 2-year exemption period for the existing platted properties, and then a lower fee for CDBG areas. City Council considered those comments, recommendations. They adopted the SEAC fee levels below those of Midland. They went with a 1-year exemption period, and then they went with a lower fee for CDBG areas as well. So when we look at our base fee structure that was developed, under wastewater, 3/4 inch water meter, the maximum fee that the state would allow us to assess would be $1,662. The council decided to go with $831 for residential, $415 for CDBG, and non-residential $1,662. And that's a 3/4 inch meter. That's the base meter size. With water, the maximum that the state would have allowed us to assess is $778. In residential, we did $389. CDBG's $194, and non-residential is $778. Roadway service areas. Service area 1, the maximum allowable was $2,726. The residential was set at $599. The CDBG was set at $131, and the non-residential at $862. And you can see each of those as you go through. And again, those are per service unit. So
I think when you look at, when I was looking at some of these that had actually been done, because this actually kicked in September.
it's been in
It's been in
year-
place, but you had like a year grace period, right?
For residential, yes, sir.
And so it's really kind of kicked in the last 6 months, 5
Yes,
or 6 months. It looks like most of the cost of these is really going to the roadway. It looked like the amount on the water and sewer was pretty nominal,
Right.
even on a large development. But, most of it was coming into the road. Now, some of the roadway things I saw were getting pretty stout.
Yes, sir. That's very true. What we saw on that a little bit ago, $215 million of roadway cost was projected, where you had 55 million, I think, for water. And anyway, so the water and sewer were significantly less amount of construction costs necessary. So that was a big part of that. Even at that, say like Faudree Road, which cost us substantially more than I'm sure the estimate was here. That project in itself was just a lot more expensive than would have been projected here. Yes, sir.
I think the reason why this has kind of come up is, you know, on the one hand, and this is just the discussion that's being had, I don't know if anybody's got any answers to it. But on the one hand, we're trying to incentivize development through ODC and other means. And on the other hand, we're kind of disincentivizing, however you want to look at it, development through impact fees. And, you know, kind of the discussion started being had, you know, are we kind of working at odds with, you know, do we have two things going at each other? Then you throw in 380 agreements and you throw in all these other things, you know, and we've got kind of this tangled web of incentives and disincentives. And I think a lot of discussion began to kind of be had, you know, how can we make it kind of still meet the needs of the city, but how do we make this easier? How do we make it cleaner?
Yes, sir.
Like I say, I don't think anybody's got any answers to it.
Sure.
But I think that's why this has come up.
Sure.
As we hear, I know I've had one builder reach out, you know, and I mean, they were looking at about $130,000 impact fee for not that significant of a project. I mean, I think it's a $2 million project, but you know, I think that's it. I think when Chris and I had the meeting with Landgraf and with Withrow, I think we were looking at bringing in about $3.5 million this year in the year, the first 12 months of the actual implementation of it. Is that?
Yeah, I think in general, we were expecting, you know, and when we say that, it very much depends on how busy things get or how
Sure.
slow they get. But I think we were looking at about $3.5 million a year, and I think over 10 years, so it'd be about 35 million altogether, I think, or something.
Which is about 10% of the need.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you add up to 215 plus 50, you're well over 300 million.
Okay. So I think that's why we ask you to kind of update us, and you've kind of gone into a lot of detail here, but which is good, but you know, I think that's really the question that's kind of percolating out there. You know, how do we, you know, we're out there trying to incentivize on one hand, we're kind of disincentivizing on the other hand, and how do we find that happy medium and make it a lot easier? Because I know, you know, developers and things, when they get $100,000 bill, you know, they're kind of like, you know, it kind of hurts on some of these projects. So
I think some of what the benefits that the legislation was trying to do was to help make sure that everybody was treated the same. So if
Yes.
you were doing the same project, you weren't being treated different than another developer, because they do compete too in
Yeah.
cases. But also so that they could see it up front and pretty much predict what their costs were gonna be, so they could put it in their pro formas, et cetera. And in all cases, developers generally are going to be required to make some contributions in money. And so we require developers to still participate in the building of these larger roads. If you have a residential and you're next to what's supposed to be a 5-lane road, you're going to be responsible for 20 feet on each side of that roadway. Now, the city then covers the center. In this case, you can either do that, and then the city, you can get credit for that, and I'll use the wrong terms sometimes. There's a credit and offset, but anyway, that can be worked out as an agreement so that it relieves you of impact
okay, that was another question that came up. Is there any offset if the developer's doing more of the work?
Yes.
In extending the roadway or the sewer or water lines in there? Are there some offsets that go against his
And it-
impact fees.
And it has to be specifically for the roads that are outlined in the impact fee,
Okay.
but they can. And all the monies that come in from the impact fees have to be used for impact fee projects, so you can't use them for other things. This table tells you what the funds have been received so far. Say roadway area, 156 permits, about $500,000. Roadway 2, 15 permits for 155. Roadway area 3 is the busiest area, 280 permits and 1.3 million. The only project we have allocated funds at this time was to the Fodry project, and that's 728,487, and that comes out of that 1.3 million that was received, because it has to come out of the same area that those funds were received for. But yeah, okay. Let's see. Here's an example of this was I think it's one of the facilities you're talking about, kind of a tennis facility.
Yes.
And so Odessa has 3 regions, and so we took that same facility and we priced it for all 3 regions in Odessa, as well as the 4 regions in Midland. And so Midland uses alphabetical nomenclature on theirs, but so the facility I think is located in 3. And so their fee is about $107,000. If they were located in 2, which of course is our least exposed area for roadways and things, would be $60,000. In Midland and similar, their upper regions would be about $126,000 for the same facility. And another one was an exercise facility, I think was another one that was being asked about. And so it's also in Area 3 and just under 60,000. If it was located in 2, it would be very close to the same amount. But Area 1, Area 2 would be quite a bit less. And in Midland, you'll see they're slightly higher on their upper areas for the same type of facilities.
So we're a sketch lower than Midland.
Yeah, yes, sir. I'll put some resources and things if y'all want, that kind of thing in there, but any other questions or?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
3. Is Kimberly Horn's study online where we can
Yes, sir.
access it?
Yeah, and I'll make sure to put that was some of the things I was gonna put under resources, but yes, sir. If you want to, one of the ways that I normally do it, I just put in Odessa, Texas impact fees in a search, and it'll bring up, we have resources there that
And
shows.
Then I have another one. In perspective or by comparison, you showed tennis courts, but like out on 87th Street, they're building a brand new full-service car wash, multiple cars, 2 acres. And then there's a single car wash, new one on 87th at Kentquick. What would be the tap structure on their water demand, just so we visualize that a little bit? Do you have any idea?
Personally, I don't, sorry, but you probably have a 2-inch water meter, at least for a car wash, I would think.
A big car wash?
But a big car wash definitely would be 2-inch or larger. And small car wash would still probably be 2-inch. You're probably looking, again, it depends on how many bays are going simultaneously. Now, I should state also, car washes recycle water. So
Yeah, they do.
they may not be as much as I'm thinking.
Leads my next question. If something was down in the interior of Odessa, would there be infrastructure to even make a tap for something like that?
In most places, we can manage supply to car washes and things like that, yes, sir.
I have one other question. In view, you were talking about the 6-mile diameter, 3-mile radius, and you said it had to be in the city limits. And example, Odessa, maybe 6 or 8 years ago, contributed a lot of linear city limits, only the road, Loop 338. And so even if there's, operation already in the city limits on one side, the other one, somebody's right up next to them and needs water, do they have the infrastructure fee if they if they're the water district water?
So if you mean Ector County Utility District?
Yeah, if they're not in the city limits, but they're adjacent to it, and the water is available and the city grants them, do they have to make the same infrastructure fee as somebody in the city limits?
We have discussed that, and I'm going to parse I think we do, but the city has not been providing water outside the city limits unless people are in a super fund zone in recent years. And so, but I'm not sure if we recognize that. I think the water and sewer areas go beyond the city limits, don't they? Go out to the ETJ. John knows well. And, but, yes, on those it does. Roadway, we cannot.
Roadways have to be inside the city limits, not the ETJ.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or? Thank you, Mr. Kerr.
Anytime y'all
Thank
need
you.
anything, let us know.
Thank you so much.
I don't believe that we have anything to go into executive session for, so we will skip over that part.
Tracy's got something.
Okay.
Peggy's here and would like to revisit the GCC project
Okay.
real quick.
Okay.
Because I had a couple of numbers wrong on the grant amount, so.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to go back up to item number, what was that, number 7?
Yeah.
And kind of revisit that one.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this is the first meeting I've gotten to come to you as the chairman and chairwoman, chairperson, whatever it is. And I had on my calendar you met at 4, not 2. So I thought I was actually 15 minutes early instead of an hour and 45 minutes late. On the, Tracy said she went ahead and told you the details. There's only one thing that I think is different that we changed at the last, and I think that Dr. Kirk will remember this, but they had requested $2 million. We actually, and you know, they have 104 retained jobs and 4 new ones. And the matrix for the jobs actually qualified them for $1,118,588. And they had asked for $2 million. They're building $400 million on a new building. So we gave them $1 million on the new building. They won't get that. They have to spend $100 million to get the $1 million, and they won't get any of it until the project's completed. But those two numbers together are a little more than $2 million. Remember, we decided we would fund the payroll at the $1,118,588, and then $1 million on the $100 million of the $400 million CapEx project. So
we're looking at a total of $2,118,588.
yes, and I have that.
Peggy, do you remember what the matrix qualified them for overall?
$8 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a much
Yeah.
greater
Larger
sum
amount.
than what they
Right, it was
requested.
like 8.7
Yeah.
million.
Okay.
And they asked for 2, and so we funded the payroll.
Okay.
The way the matrix.
Just a little dab extra.
Okay. Do we have any problem going back and just amending that? Okay. Okay. So,
Remember, we
Yes.
kept going back and forth, and at the end, we said, let's fund the payroll and add $1 million, so.
okay.
for the CapEx.
So I guess the proposal on the table right now on item number 7 is to go back and amend that. Okay, thank you. So we've got to have a motion to reconsider number 7.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? Okay, so we're going to reconsider number 7, and the proposal is to amend the amount from $2 million to $2,118,588 paid out over 5 years.
So move.
Dr. Kirk, second. Mr. Robinson, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Citizens' comments on non-agenda items. We've had a long meeting. Do we have anybody that's just dying to talk to us? Okay, so nothing there. The last item is to, just an informational item. The upcoming date for the future ODC board meeting. And really what this is we've worked to schedule a kind of joint meeting between city council, county commissioners, and ODC. ODC is really kind of playing host a little bit for this. It's really about the city and the county. But the idea behind it is there have been a few large items that have just kind of been on the horizon for a long time, and we've had a little bit of a hard time getting everybody together to discuss these items. These have to do with interlocal agreements. We've really asked the city and the county to limit the discussion to 4 major items. This is the sales tax in the tax assistance district as the city expands their boundaries into what is now the county. We've got to get a plan for that. Also, the interlocals having to do with the city providing the county, or the county providing the city with prisoner services at the jail, city providing the county fire and EMF service in the county, and then also the animal shelter, because again, the city provides those services, the county, there needs to be some reimbursement mechanism there. So we're very hopeful and excited to be able to host that meeting, just trying to pull everybody together. And we've really asked them to come not only with problems, but with at least proposals of solutions, so that we can kind of use this hopefully as kind of a springboard. We've got new city council, we've got new county commissioners court, and so it's been very well received by everybody. And like I say, we're just there to play host. You know, the reality of it is all of these things impact economic development. We've had some real issues with, like the county assistance district, of expanding into, you know, we ran into the Beaton Bow project, the expansion up into the 100th Street area, and also we're really just hoping that ODC can be an ambassador to both sides and kind of help maybe pull the two sides together and work out some agreements there. There's actually about, I think, 21 or 23 interlocal agreements or more. Okay. There's so many we can't even find them all. Yeah. So a lot of these have not been looked at in a long time. There's some conflict in them. It's just a mess. So we're hoping that this might be the first of several meetings that maybe we can help host and kind of bring everybody together on and begin to work through these things that impact our whole community. You know, everything that, I don't know if we're unique in this, but you know, you say Ector County, you think Odessa, you say Odessa, you think Ector County. We're really one community. And so you know, it's really important that we all figure out how to work together to further our one community. And so really excited about that. That'll be February 21st. We're doing it at neutral ground. It'll be at the Salisbury conference room in the OC Electronics and Technology building. So we'll have a lot of room. We're going to be putting out publicity there. I noticed the county had put out one little deal the other day on it, and we'll be doing some more publicity, letting people know it's happening, because we want people to come, hear the discussions, and be involved in it. And we'll also be working with the media, local media, to get the word out. And also our incredible new ad committee, ad agency can probably help us there as well to get the word out. So that's coming up. So please, you know, everybody that can attend February 21st, 6 p.m. at OC.
I want to say I think that's a good idea. It is going to interfere with my observance of a religious holiday, of Fat Tuesday, but I will make the sacrifice.
Thank you. And any other?
Not having been consulted on date.
Any other items that we need to talk about for future board meetings? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll have something for you next month.
Second.
Dr. Kirk and Melanie, second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.